A lot of journalists are freaking out when gamers complain that one game or another is woke, and they really don't like the term go woke, go broke. But there is a reason for it. It's not just that the story is woke, because you can skip the story. You can press escape, you can just choose not to listen and immerse yourself in the gameplay, enjoy the graphics. But the problem is that oftentimes the woke story is just a red flag that everything else is gonna be shit. And there is a reason for that. It's that once you have a woke story, it's not just the story that's the issue, it's the entire corporate culture. And wokeness as an ideology just crushes and destroys creativity. And even worse, it makes the job harder for people that are already doing a hard job. Like, you may notice that the more woke a company becomes, the more likely it is that their games just don't even work on launch. Like, Forspoken didn't work on launch, Cyberpunk didn't work on launch. Baldur's Gate is a very interesting thing, where they started with a team that wasn't woke, and the first half of the game is really amazing. But as you play on, especially if you are playing at launch, the third act would not even work on some computers. Like, it would either crush the entire game and you would have to go back into desktop, or it wouldn't load properly. And even the quality of the Act 3, which was done with the woke team, you can notice a huge downgrade. So the question is, why is it? Like, why, like what does coding have to do with the story of the game being woke? And the answer is, like, as I said, it's a corporate ideology. Like, you just don't have it applied only to the story. Here you have at Epic Games, they're also applying it to coding. Now, as I mentioned before, coding is a difficult job, and it's also a zero-sum game. It's either the code works or it doesn't work. So you want to focus at making the code as efficient as possible and to make sure that it works. You don't want to add any artificial things to it. You don't want to make the coder have to struggle thinking about other things when it's already difficult. And on top of that, you realize that the customer doesn't even get to see the code. Like how many of you actually saw the code behind Baldur's Gate 3? Chances are almost no one. In fact, I'm pretty sure no one actually saw it. So what would be the purpose at fucking with the code? And the answer is just ideological. It's just so a massive corporeal manifestation of an HR hag gets to feel good about herself that she fixed America by forcing the people working at the company to have a more difficult job. And instead of focusing on bug fixes, instead of focusing on making sure that the game runs smoothly on various machines, they also have to now review the code for inclusivity. Whatever the fuck that is, well, actually, we know what it is, right? So, listen to this. When coding, you need to use inclusive word choices. You need to use racial, ethnic, and religious inclusiveness. Like, I fucking hell, the last thing that the coder needs to think about when coding is Jesus Christ. I mean, they should think about Jesus Christ to protect them from the HR hack. But other than that, like, when you're coding, it's like, oh yes, I need to think about racial, the Eskimos, and the Aboriginals, and the Caucasians, like, look how they're importing their shit. Look how they're importing their garbage from their liberal universities in places where people actually have to work for a living. Gender inclusiveness refer to hypothetical people as they, them, and their, even in the singular. So now you need to break the English language because people are used to a grammar that flows well in their head, that they're used to speaking as their mama used to teach them. But no, apparently your mama was a racist piece of shit. She didn't know how to teach you English properly. So now you listen to the corporate environment and they tell you how to speak English now. So you're having to thinking about the code, and you also have to think about how you're phrasing things. Refer to anything that is not a person as it. For example, a module, plugin, function, client, server, or any other software or hardware component. Do not assign to a gender to anything that doesn't have one. Again, it's almost like they believe that the coders influence the state of the US, right? Like, them writing these evil lines of code like Hackerman are creating actual misogynismus and racismus in the United States of America. No, seriously, like, these people are so high on their own farts, they genuinely, unironically believe that they are fixing society by imposing these things on a gaming company's coders. I'm not even kidding. Like, if you speak with them, they actually say that. Of course, they're also grifting because they make millions of dollars off of this. I mean, the consultants that are reviewing this and implementing this are paid a lot by these companies. And this is probably one of the many reasons why games cost $120 nowadays. Like, when you buy a game, you're paying for the person that's implementing this and that's reviewing this, which is part of the product that you don't even get to see. And it's also something that most people don't even complain. I mean, I know a lot of coders, and they do work with people of various religious and ethnic background. No one cares. Like, no Indian ever said, hey, you know what, can you write your code more inclusive? Because the thing is, like, there's a standard way of writing the code, and the main purpose when writing the code is to make sure that the person reviewing it has an easy time reviewing it. That's it. You don't try to flower the language. You don't try to overcomplicate it. I mean, imagine the horror if you're a coder from a sane company having to review this shit, and you're like, they, what are they talking about? Oh, they're using this function. Holy shit, why did they have to write it like this? Avoid colloquial phrases that contain arbitrary genders, like a poor man's ex. Do not use collective nouns, like guys assume gender. They changed the master-slave bullshit. Now, the master-slave is standardized, and everyone knows what it means. It's like, okay, well, this is the master function, all right, this is the slave function. And the funny thing is, like, when they changed it, they didn't introduce a new standard, so now you can use whatever the fuck you want, so that someone who reviews your code has to call you up and get like, can you please unfuck your code? It's like, no, the HR lady wants me to have it. No, but please unfuck it because I don't understand it. Can you call the HR lady? Well, she doesn't understand it either. She has no fucking idea how to code. She was taught by her gender studies professor that this is going to fix America, but she has no idea how to actually code. Because if she did, she wouldn't force this on people. She would understand it's cruel and unusual punishment. And not to mention, the return game is almost zero. Now, the question is, why do they do it, right? Because they do it in different professions where they don't understand the profession at all, but they're very experts on telling people how to do their job, right? And the whole purpose is to make the coder aware of social justice, right? Like, they want to make the coder go like, okay, well, what exactly pisses off these people? Because these are like mystical people. They seem to have mystical powers of fixing racismus and sexismus in society. So what does it piss them off? And now the coder has to read CNN, has to go through CNN, MSNBC, the Young Turks, all this shit in order to go like, oh, so despite the fact that I have hair in my head and I have the human right of freedom of expression, there are some things I'm not allowed to do with my hair. Like, I'm not allowed to have dreads if I'm a Caucasian. So if my parents are white and they had sex and they had me, then I'm not allowed to manipulate the hair on the top of my head in various forms because it triggers these people, and if it triggers these people, it can affect my job. Like, this is the purpose, right? So that you actually interact with their insanity. Like, you actually need to go on Tumblr in order to learn what triggers these individuals so you can avoid it and have, I wouldn't say a happy day at work, but at least a bearable day at work. Imagine having to talk with the person that's having like this nonsense being spewed. Jesus, it's like going into the mental asylum. The following that identifies some terminology that we have used in the Unreal code base in the past, but that we believe should be replaced with better alternatives. So it's kind of funny that even they are like, yeah, even with all our knowledge that we have gathered from our gender studies professor, even we were sexist. But it's okay. Now we're better. Now we evolved. Now we're humani sovieticus. Now we're smarter than we were before. So please stop using blacklist. Again, like common language words that everyone knows what they mean. Like when you hear the word blacklist, the last thing you think about is a black person, unless you're constantly being told by HR that this is what you have to think, and they're literally pushing this concept into people's brain that didn't even exist before. And notice, like, blacklist is a standard thing, right? Like, you're reading about, okay, well, blacklisting means that do not use these words. Simple, easy to understand. Well, you can't use blacklist, but instead you can use these other words. So they're removing the standard. I mean, imagine that you're reading a text and then you see unapproved list or forbidden list or permission list, and you gotta think, it's like, what did they mean by this? That now, obviously, it's not difficult to realize what the other coder was thinking when they wrote forbidden list. But it sounds like they don't speak English, first and foremost. Secondly, you now have to waste additional time in order to even like think about these concepts and get used to them, when you could just bypass it if they would have used the proper terminology. And then it's like not just with one word. Like, as you can see, it's a whole list of words. So you now have to think all the time. It's like, what did they mean by this? What did they want to say? It's like, and you have to call them up. Wasted time. Like, for a company, you want the coders to be as efficient as possible, get the coding to work, and if possible, also streamline it so that it works on most computers. This is ridiculous. This is why so many games are coming out and they're broken at launch, because it's not just the story that's woke. It's the art style that's woke. And again, when you make the art style woke, it doesn't sell as well. The story is woke. The coding is woke. That's why you get bugs and shit. And all of these together, like all of this thing that the ideology does, is not create a better product. Because what the customer wants, it's two things. A product that's better and a product that's cheaper. None of these seem to be the case. Like, people would be happy, with Suicide Squad, unironically, if it was like $5 or $10. Like, people would be like, okay, it's a $10 game. Yeah, sure, I mean, it's not, I mean, you can play it a little bit and it's fine. It's not, right? If the art style was amazing, oh, well, Suicide Game is a bad game, but, like, at least you get to stare at Harley's tits, Like, if at least it had, like, some Nikkei visage in it, it's like, well, I can shut my brain off. Like, I can turn my brain off and just enjoy the game for what it is. It's just some fan service. Like, that's fine. But no, they don't do that. So the art style isn't there. Oh, maybe the story, like, okay, well, the gameplay isn't really that good. The art style is bad, but the story is amazing. I mean, it's got a great story. You don't have that either. Nothing works in their favor. So maybe you'd be like, well, fine. The story is bad, the gameplay is bad, but at least the game is stable. Not even that. And this is why Go Woke, Go Broke is a thing. It's usually a miracle when they pull it off. It's like a bit, okay, this game was woke and it's actually stable on launch. It released without any major bugs and any major issues. So that's a big W. But anyway, right, let me know what you guys think, and as usual, I will see you in the comment section. Take care.